Welcome one and welcome all back to the Proving Grounds here. We're on the second day of week number 2, and I am so excited because I have Joshi, I've got Pyra. Those are wonderful people to have on the desk, I would say. But my biggest excitement is that I have Avril joining us, Challenger ADC, Twitter personality extraordinaire. Avril, how you doing? You excited to be part of the Proving Grounds broadcast?
I am so excited. This is actually my first time on the LCS stream, so this is like a big deal for me.
Let's go. You love
Heck
to hear
yeah.
those dubs. I love to see it. But here in Proving Grounds, we've had an interesting run so far. So let's go ahead and bring up the bracket and talk a little bit about what we've seen so far. Joshi, I just want to get your first thoughts here as we see those first round lock-ins as we get to Dignitas Team Liquid going up next.
Yeah, overall, the bracket is going pretty chalk, right? We're having a higher siege, generally being a lower siege. There's only been one exception thus far in AOE Ginger Turmeric taking down 100 Thieves Academy, but, if you just showed me this bracket beforehand and I wasn't looking too close, I'd be like, yeah, everything seems to be checking out.
Yeah,
It's actually crazy.
I'm there more or less, but I do think some of the results maybe don't necessarily show how some of the games have gone, right? We've
True.
had some pretty nutty things in game, a lot of bangers as well so far, so that's been exciting.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on the upper bracket here, Avril, as you've seen it play out, especially the AOE Ginger Turmeric?
Oh, I mean, this is really exciting having like this pretty big upset game with AOE beating Under Thieves and seeing this next game. Let's see if AOE can keep this streak up, because it was pretty close, that one game that they played.
It was, and we're gonna start locking in those ending parts of the upper bracket here with these two games today, so it's gonna be very exciting. We got to look at the lower bracket though, as we have to look at some elimination games on the deck. And Avril, I want to go to you first. Do you have any thoughts about some of these teams, especially looking at the AM representation in the lower bracket?
Oh my god, the AM scene looks so strong right now. There's actually so many teams I'm rooting for that actually look like they are have a fighting chance. Like Cincinnati, Fear, Taco Gaming, all these teams.
That's it.
And AOE.
That's it. Not 100 teams next.
Ginger Turmeric, of course.
No love for 100 next.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, that's kind of a given, honestly.
Yeah.
It's a given. Yeah,
Didn't need to
everybody
say
knows.
it.
I needed it to be said. I kind of
Yeah.
want this to be I almost want 100 next to go up against 100 Academy, because I had taken my brain I was stewing on, and I still don't know how much I believe it, but I feel like 100 next might be better than 100 Academy.
Ooh, it's
that's
spicy. I mean,
a hot take.
I was a little bit surprised that
That's not
AOE
actually-
Ginger Turmeric was our only upset so far, right? Because that was the one that I wasn't necessarily expecting to see Amateur taking it out. But 100 Thieves next, Taco Gaming, I was expecting them to be able to take down some of our lower seeded Academy teams. But it feels as though our lower seeded Academy teams are really surging at the right time, and our higher seeded Academy teams are kind of struggling.
So I just want to give a brief explanation, right? We've been talking about upper bracket, lower bracket, Proving Grounds, all this stuff, but it is the culmination of the developmental cycle for North America, right? It is the 10 academy teams going against 10 amateur teams, and it's so nice to see the competition play out this way. Even if we have seen the differences between the academy and amateur scene, that is the roots of the system that's being developed here in North America. So if you're wondering why we're here, it's all about Proving Grounds, baby. And especially looking at Proving Grounds, looking at some of those Showtime moments, the spotlights. There's one in particular that holds a little special place in my heart, because Perry, my man, Joshi, we need to gush a little bit, because we need some more Perry.
Yeah, I made a tweet yesterday. I thought that Perry's playing not just well for a rookie in the entire series, but he's playing well for an academy jungler across the entire thing. Whenever I see this, I always feel, the stars of amateur are going to be the future of academy, and the stars of academy are the future of LCS, right? Perry's already got a bright future from what we've seen so far on stage. And if you watch his stream, you can very much tell he's a very intelligent guy.
He truly is. Avril, do you have any thoughts about this jungler, especially in his first iteration of academy?
Oh my god, he's been looking so good, and it shows in these plays. This is a pretty standard Volver dive, but here, oh my god, his Zenjab was so clean. Just take a look at how patient he is with his ult. Even though you see Perry like Wukong is going into their carries, he is confident and knows like when to save his ult there, not to ult Wukong away, because his team's strong enough to deal with that, and that was like so clean. And finding this angle was so Kong worthy. Like, you would never expect a Zinja coming from that angle, but this angle just carried this entire fight. Oh my god.
It's actually crazy.
Oh, the killer instinct on Champions League Sin and even on the Volibear. I can't wait to see what else he's got, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do need to continue the conversation, though, because we highlight Perry, but also we got to look at a tweet, I guess you would say, from Spawn. So I definitely want to go ahead and bring that one up, because it's a little bit of nostalgia, I guess is the word here, Pyra. I feel like that is the correct term.
Nostalgia usually carries a positive connotation. I
Is
think
it not positive?
stress, anxiety. I don't know. Like
PTSD.
If I know Mr. Jake Taveri, I think he's like, here we go again. So that's kind of where I'm coming down on it. But hey, go next, I guess, right?
Go next. Look,
Or
I
go this
gotta
one,
say,
oh.
if you watch Gamsu playing in the academy scene or even the LCS, he's kind of like, he's there. But then you see him come into Proving Grounds, and he just seems to have this aura around him where he makes the rest of the team just crumble. Well, not his own team, but the other team. The other team just like comes into him, and he's just like, just looks so much tastier as a dive target than he seems to in the LCS or academy scene. It's just Proving Grounds, right? There's something about the bracket that just makes Gamsu play to another level.
It's something about the turrets too. I don't know what it is, but you get around the turret and like it just starts to shine a little bit nicer. It starts to look a little bit better, and you just see these moments where I guess, especially getting to look at Evil Geniuses on our map here and seeing a little bit of their win, their come out here, at least trying to face down Team Liquid Honda, Joshi.
Yeah, this is something that we kind of, a bit of a fast segue, but jumping into Evil Geniuses, they nearly perfect gamed Team Liquid yesterday, right? This was a team that Evil Geniuses was really struggling to play up against, and then all of a sudden, it feels as though they're just consistently always fighting these fights that Team Liquid were not prepared for, and every single person was able to step up. Saligo on his signature Lysandra, Surdy on the Gnar, something he's only put a couple of games on, and just allowing Tomio as well to come through. It's the Tomio that we've been looking for so long. It's the Tomio that we've been missing since his days on Evil Geniuses Prodigies.
I love
series,
that. Go ahead.
That series gave me whiplash, Mazel. That was very like back and forth. I don't know why it took like that extra game for the ramp up to happen, but it was really nice to see.
Yeah. I also got to look at the Twitter coming out from all the guys, right? Every single player afterwards was like, yeah, sorry, we didn't play very well. Apparently, Jan, he said that he's so sick that he can barely talk, so that might have been a bit of a factor, but Team Liquid did not look like themselves yesterday. Luckily, they now have a 10-day break before we have to see them again, and that matchup will determine whether or not they're going to be going into the top 4 in the winner's side, or if they're going to have to play through the loser's bracket.
I also just love to kind of see the adaptation to the Twitter meta from Team Liquid Academy. See a little bit of fun there, especially in light of the situation. But especially talk about Twitter, talk about the shoutouts, especially from Kelsey Moser and stuff like that. Right, this is the Tomio we were promised. We're actually getting a little iteration of that, so I love that. But speaking of Team Liquid Academy a little bit more, we came up with a fun little segment where we had chosen how many losses we think Team Liquid Academy or Honda Academy will take, and we have some eliminations to get out of the way here. And we have a likely candidate on our broadcast today. Joshi, would you like to say anything as we see you bow out of the losses?
I'm just saying, if Jan was as sick as he says he is, I feel as though this should not be counted. Feels like fake news. Jan needs to come back. He will play at full power, and it took a huge nerf in order for anybody to take their first game off of them. They're going to go lossless, undefeated the rest of the tournament.
I feel like that was some serious hopium and continues to be.
Yeah,
you got 10 days to get better.
Joshi, my man, my dude, my co-caster. You watch this team in Academy. They throw random games all the time.
Yeah.
They throw random games. Is that the conversation now?
All the time is a little bit of a strong word.
Okay,
but
not
they
all
definitely,
some of the time. That's why I gave them 3 losses.
There's a certain FlyQuest game that we can think back of that we can, very quickly take out of our brain. Just, Harry Potter, put the wand to your temple and be like, goodbye.
Oh
You're not alone, at least. At least Smax and Kangas were right there with you. But man, that's a little bit much opium. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying.
I'm saying I'm not hopium or copium because I'm right on track with my 5 losses for Team Liquid Honda. They lost the 1 game to Evil Geniuses. Now we got 2 best of 5 bangers for them. It's going to be a good time. So everything's right on track. Kangas, Joshi, I'm sorry.
Can I also flame Summer for her?
Let's see.
For
Yeah,
her
I was going to say we have
expressions,
to get some Summer Flame in there too. Come on.
girl. That's it.
That's it. That's it. That's the
Look,
flame.
Smack said 0 Team Liquid losses, and after looking at the bracket, he was saying 14 amateur wins over Academy. It's 2 L's right there.
There might be some copium
they're
in
also
there.
the only one who's currently casting like these major upsets, right?
True.
There's something in the water whenever Smax is casting.
Something in the water, something in the air. You know, you love it. Speaking of upsets, though, we got to throw back to a call that was made. No, it is Rafa's AOE Ginger Turmeric call. Let's listen in what he had to say about them.
My God! Kill and trims! Wipe out the members of 100 Thieves in one single blow! Moose Hater chasing down Tenacity. This could be it, Smacks! The greatest upset in amateur history against the Academy teams! The number 2 team is about to be sent to the lower bracket by AOE Ginger Turmeric!
Now, it could be debated on what the biggest amateur upset is, but I think we have some interesting takes to kind of counteract Rafa's call in the moment. I could feel you, though, Rafa. I feel you. The emotions, the moment, I know. But you got to look at some of the track record here, Joshi, and I'm also looking at the Barrage 2-0 victory over TL.
Yeah, there's a couple in here that, you know, don't immediately come to mind, right? The Evil Geniuses Prodigies run was pretty good. The Immortals AOE run up against TSM earlier. You know, both these were worth noting, but there are some definite big changes here, right? Barrage and Resolve are probably some of the biggest upsets we've ever had in Proving Grounds history of the amateur teams taking down Academy teams. And the big question is, which one of these upsets is the biggest?
That is the question. Avril, do you have any takes on some of these upsets? Is it the AOE Ginger Turmeric role?
I mean, honestly, you can't really blame Rafa for saying that. It was really a hype moment, and it was probably just in the moment. It was. But it was a pretty big upset. I mean, 100 Thieves was second seed in the Academy bracket, so it was a pretty big one, and I won't lie, he did make some points.
He did. Fire, do you have any thoughts about the classic amateur upsets in coordination with AOE Ginger Turmeric?
I am tempted to be like, yeah, you know, the Barrage, it was a 2-0, like that was pretty massive as well, and it was a little while. I've slept since then. I gotta go with Rafa. I think this is the biggest upset because that was massive. AOE Ginger Turmeric, I mean, it's not like they were the ones who won the whole last PGCQ. They were up there, but I wasn't expecting this level of performance. So I'm gonna give it to Rafa. I'm gonna say that was a certified record-setting upset.
Josie, we need to cool down here.
We gotta calm down a little bit, right? You gotta remember that Resolve and Barrage were also looking kinda coming into Proving Grounds, and you had the same 4 players on both of them, right? PCL, Fnatic, AP, and Winter on both of these rosters. You had Gorka with one, Array on the other one, and then of course, you know, Norg having their huge win. But Resolve and Barrage, not only did they beat both Team Liquid and Cloud9, they also didn't really win after that. It was the only series that they really had success in, and so seeing this change is kind of different. So while I do feel as though we have at least, you know, I want to say a Subway 6-incher, you at least got a little bit larger than that coming through with all of the other ones. Resolve and Barrage, huge upsets.
Yeah, and I'm calling this one a foot long. All right, I think that was big. We also don't know what is going to happen further into the tournament. So I don't know if the hindsight point with all of the other games. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm feeling something special about this GT squad.
Well, we did have a response from a member of AOE Ginger Turmeric to Rafa's call. So let's listen to what Keel had to say.
Yeah, I heard the end of game cast where Rafa said it was the biggest upset in amateur history. And my first thought is just how bad do you have to think we are for that to be the biggest upset? I felt like it was like, you know, either of us could win this. So hopefully we'll just keep winning and show that it wasn't a one-off and it wasn't a big upset after all.
How bad do you think we have to be? Avril, do you got any thoughts on that response?
he did not have to like be that hot for like 0 for real.
Look, I'm
I'm
just saying,
feeling some
last
type
time
of
Kiel
way.
played in Proving Grounds, they got 13th with CLG, so...
They did. I just love to hear
nobody's saying anything about that. What?
I mean, I
will
don't
say-
disagree with you. That's all.
I will say that I love that Kiel was willing to kind of come on and show that, because it is nice to see, you know, they believe in themselves to some extent, and seeing the fruits of their
Yeah.
labor with AOE Ginger Turmeric, Avril.
Confidence is like everything when you're trying to, you know, in this industry, especially if you're like going against like teams that you don't think you're gonna win against, or it's really unlikely. The most important thing is that you believe in yourself, because you thinking like, oh, like this game's gonna be so hard. It's not gonna help your performance or your team. So you just need to go in, even if it's like blind optimism. It's at the end of the day, like you need to have that confidence, even if it's like kind of delusional.
And I feel as though the order in which we've had our series has made a pretty big difference in how we look at this AGT upset, right? Because after it, we also watch 100 Thieves next, and Taco Gaming have opportunities to try and upset other teams that we also thought were weaker, right? 100 Thieves Academy is not just some academy team. They were our second seed throughout the entire split, and seeing that AGT was able to take down 100 Thieves and then watch 100 Thieves next and Taco Gaming, who have consistently outperformed AGT, lose to weaker academy teams, really kind of cements how big of an upset this AGT win over 100 Thieves was.
And that upset, talking about it, Pirate.
Oh yeah, I was just saying that's the big deal, right? It's the caliber of opponent, the expectations that we had on 100 Thieves Academy. I think that makes it so big, even compared to the relative level of where AOE GT were.
Yeah, and speaking of 100 Thieves Academy, you can call it the upset. It obviously is one of the best in terms of Proving Grounds history. But you know, it is something to look at in terms of the experience on this team, Joshi. And Papa Smithy rightly called it out, right? 4 splits in total among this team. And I think you see some of that in the gameplay we get from them.
Yeah, it's definitely worth calling out that this team doesn't have a whole lot of experience at the academy level. We've seen a lot of them in the amateur scene in particular, but it's also worth calling out, right? The team that they lost against, AOE Ginger Turmeric, also has the same number of academy splits underneath their belt, right? You have 2 from Kiel, you have 1 from Wixie, and then you have 1 from Duo King. And of course, Wixie's had a little bit more than that subbing in for a couple of teams, but this is also a spot where, you know, you look at just the amount of experience that they have, and you got to say, well, where are they going to be going next? A lot of the teams that we look at throughout history that just have explosive starts didn't have a whole lot of time incubating before they really made it big. I think back to Cloud9 back in Season 3, where we kind of didn't know who they were before they jumped onto the LCS stage and instantly had one of the most dominant runs we've ever seen.
Very, very
Your
true.
boomer really showed there. I think a lot of people in the chat might not even remember Season 3. I don't think a lot of people played back then.
It was like Quantic, right? Before they had the Cloud9 roster.
Cloud9.
Like that, it really was a out of nowhere success story. So very good point.
Like who?
But you have to look at that further conversation, because something to highlight, Avril, is the fact that we have seen kind of interesting decision making for 100 Thieves. They fly by the seat of their pants a little bit a lot of the time. It was called out by Akash on Twitter, right? Just saying, you know, sometimes we're looking at their drafts, we're looking at the disrespectful play sometimes. Oh, Avril?
Avril?
Oh, what's up? What's up?
She's gone.
She's gone.
Hey, what's up?
Do you have any thoughts about like kind of the way that 100 Thieves plays loosely?
Do you see me?
No thoughts.
No thoughts. It's okay. Sometimes it's just vibes,
it's all right.
right?
For context, right? Kelsey Moser is our producer. You know, she's done a lot of analyst work and like recruiting work over the years. And Akash is also the coach coming in for AOE GT. And it's definitely an interesting contrast to make, right? I've made the claim multiple times that between the 15 and 25 minute mark of 100 Thieves Academy games, nothing happens. They do random skirmishes here and there. They all show up to the Dragons and they don't really set up for it. And then they just kind of outhands a lot of players when they actually get there. But we're also seeing that against talented amateur teams and even some of the talented academy teams, this strategy doesn't work, right? They are a team that really, really relies on how individually talented some of their players are.
Yeah, when you're winning a lot against teams and you're just like basically out executing them, if you get punished, you don't often know how to respond. And I think that could be a sign of struggles for a team like 100 Thieves Academy. They're certainly going to have to look at not only the way they draft, but also the way they make those decisions in game and tighten it up a lot more, getting better setups for objective control, because that's going to be how this team gets to the next level.
at the end of the day, the best teams are the ones that can adapt the fastest, and not just per patch, but during the game when it's such high pressure and they can adapt their strategy to win the game. Those are the teams that really shine and get to the top level.
Yeah, especially in proving grounds, right? It's a chance to prove yourself, and I think taking care of those moments is really important. Even when you're seeing some of those chaotic moments from 100 Thieves Academy, we have seen them in high highs. So not exactly the darkest of horse in the lower bracket, but a little bit of a dark horse run down there again for the second split in a row. Speaking of, though, we got to get to today's action, y'all. We got 2 best of 3s in the upper bracket of Proving Grounds, and I, for one, am so excited. Immortals Progressive Academy taking on AOE Ginger Turmeric in our first best of 3. And then we have Cloud9 Academy taking on CLG Academy in our second best of 3. Do you have any general thoughts, Avril, on these 2 matchups?
It's very blue.
Oh my god.
Double D.
It is very blue and teal. I'm so excited. What? You're very well versed on double D's, aren't you, Josh?
I'm very well versed in colors too. I've been working on that this whole week.
This is a little peek behind the curtain for some caster prep, but yeah, I mean,
I
think there's a lot of banger potential in these games for real.
That's what the flashcards are for.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I'm so I'm not gonna lie, I am more excited for the CLG versus the Cloud9 matchup.
Why would you say
shame.
that, Avril?
Interesting.
What? I mean, I'm just being honest.
It's not like you work for Cloud9 or anything.
Not at all.
No bias, no bias.
There's no
I just
bias
really want to
here,
see
right?
Shaden play.
Yeah. Now, what is that jersey that you happen to have behind you there?
The chair with all the stick.
The
You
chair.
know, who knows?
Oh, yeah?
We'll get to that
Sensing
later.
a
Right? You're
pattern here.
spoiling. You're spoiling, Joshi. You're spoiling. But if you want to follow any of that information, if you want to keep up to date with anything in a developmental, you gotta go follow at Path to LCS. It's where all of our content goes, where all the information about the tournament goes. And if you're not following already, please go do so. Appreciate all the love we've gotten already, and it's been an incredible split. But we got to get to our first matchup. And I know you're excited for Cloud9 versus CLG, but we got to get through Immortals, Progressive Academy, and AOE Ginger Turmeric. Looking at AO
it's a bad
to
day.
pick. No, hey, give me some time, okay,
no.
Joshi.
We gotta get through this, I guess.
But in all actuality, it is so exciting for AOE Ginger Turmeric, right? The last remaining hope for amateur in the upper bracket. And I think that's something to be said when at the beginning of the day we were talking about the expectations weren't necessarily there for this squad, Joshi.
Absolutely, and this is actually one of the matchups that I feel as though AOE Ginger Turmeric have an opportunity to really win. I think it's definitely a situation where while we have been seeing Immortals have some really strong games recently, AOE Ginger Turmeric were not favored against 100 Thieves by a larger margin than the difference is between GT and Immortals. So this is one of their opportunities to come in, especially with the way that players like Wixie have been playing in order to take over the game.
Yeah, and we got to take a look at Wixie here, specifically seeing a lot of the veterancy from this player in the bottom lane, but also want to get your take on Wixie here as we get his player card up, Avril. Wixie also has a cat named Wixie, but I think I'm looking at the gameplay a little bit more than the cat.
Yeah, I am so here for the redemption arc that Wixie has around him. You know, like getting kicked off 100 Thieves, and it wasn't honestly, and I think a lot of people agree, it wasn't really deserved. And just having like his name put back and like proving that he deserves that spot, right? And it's like such a cool narrative to have for a player, and he's definitely like proving himself as of late with his with that upset
100%.
against 100 Thieves.
Now I gotta ask Avril, do you think Wixie's Wixie
What?
has its own Wixie? How many levels do you think this goes down?
How many
Oh my
Wixies
God,
can a Wixie
imagine-
Wixie?
Yeah, does Wixie's Wixie
Imagine
have a
if his
Wixie?
cat has babies, and every single one of the
Right,
litters
and then you can
are
have
called
Wixie's Wixie.
We need to know. You're asking the hard-hitting questions there.
Yeah, I don't think we need to
Ultimately.
look at the game anymore. I think we just,
Yeah.
I think
No,
we
no,
But
no,
these
Wixie's
these are some
love
seriously
talking about
highlight
cats.
moments, right? Like I think it highlights that on way different squads, Wixie has still had these really like stand-up performances, and he's done it on a variety of champions. So we got to see a couple of Draven games the other day in that upset, and I feel like that's a big thing that this GT squad can do, is they can pull out some slightly unorthodox, some pocket picks.
Yeah.
That's something that can throw off an academy team that's not always used to playing against them.
They got to do that today, though. Immortals Progressive Academy. They have looked alive and well now in Proving Ground. Somehow, some way, revitalizing themselves. And this roster, Avril, it's looking pretty scary and pretty specifically as well in the mid lane.
For sure, Pretty has been looking just so strong. Oh, here's his little player card, and he's been
have
in
a
the
cat
scene
named
for
Wixie,
quite
though.
some time. That's true, honestly.
Not yet.
Wixie's
Not
player
yet.
card was better.
But the thing is, like, I look at Pretty as a player when he came in at the beginning of the split, or even the beginning of the split when we saw him coming into summer. I thought this meta was going to be perfect for Pretty. If Pretty is going to have an opportunity to play LCS, it's going to be now in summer. And unfortunately, while he's had some fantastic performances, the performance of the rest of the team has not necessarily been allowing Pretty to stand out, right? In his games where he does well, he pops off. He has double-digit kills multiple times, but there's a lot of times where he's not necessarily able to make the very aggressive plays. He's a very consistent player, and so we're going to be starting to watch Pretty a little bit more to see if he can be more aggressive against this amateur team, if he can really showcase that he has what it takes to really push around Captain Shrimps.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big test, and it's the opportunity for a pretty sizable mid gap if he is going to be able to flex in lane.
He is on this team. Pretty is on this team.
No way. You put it all together. It's all looking good, at least. We got to see the Bard in that last replay there. Special shout out to Joey picking that one out, but we also got to hear from him on Media Day. So let's listen into Joey here.
I just like that it's the last big tournament of the year. Honestly, I love competing and I love being able to show that you're a good team because everything before this really doesn't matter. Like Immortals, seventh place team in Academy for summer split. But if we win PG, none of that matters. It's all about proving yourself in this tournament. And I think it's really cool, like, to give the opportunity to amateur teams to actually showcase themselves in another way and actually play versus like the Academy teams. Because I think some of the Academy teams definitely can get really exposed by some of the amateur teams.
I always appreciate hearing from Joey. Man, I just gotta say, the Immortal squad, so fun to hear at the media day, but Joey is just so well spoken, Joshi, and it's also nice to see some of that memeing, at least.
Yeah, I just think back to the house tour that you did with them, where you got to see, you know, he's just got Arrow as his screensaver and just says, yeah, every single day I start off for scrims and just look at my AD carry for 5 minutes.
We heard him change the screensaver. I don't remember what it is now. I just want to get Avril's last little points here before we get into the first game of this series. You have any thoughts?
I think I'm really excited to see Joey play because he is always the MVP, and I feel like he always carries the team on his back. I feel like, I mean, that's kind of a lot of supports. Supports are really underappreciated, and they don't see. You know, I don't usually say this, so you're welcome, supports, because I am an AD carry main. But I'll give you this one time. You are underappreciated, but we're the stars.
Hey, there you go. You heard it all here. We'll see what happens on the Rift, though, as we have our first game of the day. Pyra, Joshi, take it away.
Alrighty, thank you very much, Mazel. Thank you, Avril. We're getting into game one. AOE Ginger Turmeric starting off on the blue side, Immortals Progressive Academy on the red. They'll be banning away Wixie's Draven, as well as Keel's Karthus. These are some serious target bans that we always have to consider, but also it's Aaliyah. Away from Pretty, 3 bans in the mid lane. That is pretty hefty all to start.
Yeah, it's definitely the biggest skill gap that we currently have between GT and Immortals, right? Is definitely going to be in that mid lane. Captain Shrimps has a very unique champion pool, right? He's been playing a lot of Xerath, a lot of Rumble historically throughout his career, but recently, you know, has gone back towards the Syndra. He's even been playing things like the Gangplank in the mid lane, and so Pretty needs to be ready to adjust to all of these other things. At the same time, the bottom lane makes a lot of sense. This Draven has been something that has been the darling of the amateur scene for quite a while, and both Wixie and Arrow willing to first pick it if they actually have the opportunity to do so. And now that the Draven's off the table, you just go to the next most aggressive AD carry.
Absolutely, it makes a lot of sense. So with the Kalista locked in, that means we're probably going to be seeing a match on the opposite side, looking for maybe a little bit of a handshake here. That's going to be the Aphelios still hovered. They have time. Oh, excuse me, no, they got that picked already. I'm curious to see if they round out with a full bot lane right here, Joshi, or if they opt for something else like this jungle. Chad, we haven't even really talked about him all that much, but I think there's been a little bit of up and down, and instead it's going to be the Vital pick up quickly. The Fiora picked against Moosehater.
Yeah, very unsurprising to see Vital come through with this, right? He's really been having most of his success on Gangplank, Fiora, and Yone thus far. And with his top lane coming through, a lot of players like Tenacity have been calling out that you can just blind this into almost anything. And this is another one of those matchups that you look at, right? Where if I say Pretty versus Shrimps might be the biggest difference between the individual players, the top lane is one where we don't necessarily expect to see the same kind of difference. Vital, relatively new, has only been playing his first Academy season this time. He's only been playing so far here in summer. And going up against Moose Hater, who is relatively unknown, right? This is his first Proving Grounds, and he's only really bounced around in a couple of teams as a substitute before he came in to play for GT.
Absolutely, and I think that's worth keeping in mind that there is a little bit of a lesser known quantity there, but at the same time, this is the Moose Hater that was, getting 2 solid Fiora games up against the side of 100 Thieves Academy. So I think going for the respect there, taking that away, that's nice to see. For AOE GT, they're giving themselves a very aggressive composition already. We already saw the Kalista Renata Glass combination, but in addition, the Udyr comes in here for heal. So not an AP jungler, but pretty aggro one all the same.
True. It's definitely something that Veteran was talking about in our meeting last night, where he says that AOE GT tend to play really, really strong lanes in order to buy space for Keel to farm, in order to buy space for Keel to get towards that late game. And now that he's on the Udyr, we're very familiar with this vampire, right? We saw this being played consistently by Malice in particular in Spring as the spearhead of people who just like, I'm going to out-farm you, you are forced to do things, or I'm just going to have more money, more experience than you, and I'm going to be more of a fighter later on in the game. So Immortals, they have a strong top lane, they have a strong jungle, they have a strong bottom lane. Immortals need to make sure that they can fight back to prevent GT from just scaling.
Yeah, now they're trying to hit the mid lane in terms of bans going forward too, so since that's already been stripped pretty heavily on the Pretty side, they're going to say turnabout's fair play. Silas taking off the board. Over to AOE GT, I'm curious to see if they continue to try and hammer away at Pretty here with all the mids still being yet to pick.
Wouldn't be surprised, right? Pretty has a very large champion pool. He said earlier this season that he really loves counterpicking the enemy team, not necessarily his individual lane. And so you'll oftentimes see him just pick champions that aren't particularly common because he wants to play it, and it stops a lot of what GT are going to actually be doing. So it's kind of hard to ban him out. He's got a ton of unique champion picks. But as we look towards the rest of the draft, Joey, the star that Avril was calling out earlier, still needs to find his champion, and there's not a lot of champions that you really want to pick from this position in order to actually survive the Kalista Renata laning phase.
Yeah, I think that's the tough thing, right? Like, in one sense, you can maybe try and find, like, another enchanter to try and get a nice bit of range on, but that's what AoE GT are already thinking, so they ban the Lulu away. Yeah. There is still Joey's Bard up and available if they want to do that, but AoE have the option to ban it here. They ban the Zoe instead, so continuing to opt for Pretty. 4 bans thrown at the Immortals progressive mid laner, and that just goes to show how powerful they think he is. And we might actually get more of a tanky support if this one gets locked. I was like,
there's no way.
It's a good combo, but I kind of feel it's a little weird and wonky. It's a very bruisery comp if they opt for it.
True. I mean, if they were to pick it, I would say it's probably going to be the Trundle going top, but the TK was the one that was coming to mind for me the entire time. But it's back to the Bard.
Back to the Bard, baby. I love this.
Yeah. I know that Kangas is a huge Bard player, and he loved to call out earlier when we got to see Joey play it last time. We got to see all the tricks with Bard, right? He ulted the turret to stop the Rift Herald. He ulted the objectives to stop the smites coming through. He went for the ults as just the primary engage all the time, and now with this Kale Hover coming through, it's the exact same matchup that Moose Hater was able to take down Tenacity in, and when they actually find their upset. So a little bit surprised to see this coming through. Fiora and Kale both opting to go for a bit of a scaling. Fiora definitely has more agency early on in the game. She jumps in with the lunge, pokes you with the sword, goes, ha! And then you just back away, and Kale goes, wait, please come back. I want to hit you back.
You can't touch that until you get the longer range slaps for sure. I do think Immortals Progressive could have a stronger top side for a little bit because of the fact that you have this Trundle that can get involved maybe a little bit earlier. We'll have to see if that's the case. AoE GT rounding their comp out, and Corki, bit of a throwback there ever since the nerfs, but Captain Shrimps realizes if they want to get a little bit of range, keep safe in the mid lane, and you don't know what Pretty is going to be taking. Ooh.
Interesting. This doesn't... Yeah, they don't really have a lot of knockups. I don't really expect that to come through. This one makes a little bit more sense, and I'm already looking at this GT composition. I'm saying, wow, this is a little bit disrespectful, right? You are picking farming Udyr, you're picking scaling Kale, you're picking scaling Corki. You have nothing on the top side of the map until at least minute 10, right? Immortals Progressive has so much control over the top side of the map that they are relying very heavily on Wixie and Duo King to have an advantage. Wixie and Duo King need to be the bridge for Ginger Turmeric, or Immortals Progressive are not going to be able to do much. And against most teams, that's kind of okay. That's usually not an issue. But Chad's going to invade you at level 1, dude. You have Kayla Corki. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I think this early game is going to be a bit of a rough ride, and we'll see if AOE GT are going to be able to survive it, because if they do get to the late game, things get very, very tough for their opponents. They have a ton of damage. They have the ability to just wombo combo, layer it on, decent bit of CC. That Kayle ultimate is a massive difference maker, not just for herself, but for anybody else on the team. You put that selection on. For Immortals, I think it's going to be on them in the very early game to try and get those plays. I would love to see a lot of ganking for Vital. If you can keep the Kayle behind, get that Fiora ahead, all of a sudden, Immortals Progressive Academy have themselves a ridiculous 4-1 that is going to be very hard to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, you call it out right there, right? There's so many opportunities. You can go top, you can get the Kayle who only has the one flash. You can go into the mid lane and help out Orianna just bully around this Corki. There's a lot of options available for Chad, and while we were looking at Pretty to be the primary playmaker, to be one of the big carries coming up for Immortals, it's really going to be on the back of Chad to try and set things up early.
All right, well, I'm here, and we are ready to get into game, so let's head on to the Rift for the start of our best of 3 today. It is an amateur versus Academy Rumble. So we've got AOE Ginger Turmeric taking on Immortals Progressive Academy. Potentially one of the biggest upsets in Proving Grounds history, as I know that was a contentious discussion we had in AOE
I think
GT
it's third
last
place.
minute. But it's up there. It's definitely up there.
there.
That's not up for debate. And IMT have to respect it. They are going to try and set themselves up with a fresh bait level 1. Chad doing his best to look tasty. Get underway.
Yeah, he's got a big club. He can, in fact, defend himself. But as we start looking at this team, remember, Immortals Academy is one of the teams that didn't necessarily have the best time in the regular season, right? They had a 10-game losing streak in the second round robin, and I mean, from there, they had a little bit of an upswing, but now as they start to go for this level 1, they're trying to find Keel. They do spot him out, but are going to have to back away.
Keel's going to play relatively safe around this, too. Remember, AOE GT, they're not trying to make a whole lot of plays for themselves that'll be coin flips in the early game. You want Keel to power farm. You want him to not run into Chad and have his stats stolen or have him knocked up, because he doesn't have any gap closes.
Nice.
He doesn't have any ways to get out of there. Nicely done, IMT, to clear that ward early game. Captain Shrimps, of course, for a very safe lane on the Corki, but it will be all about that bottom. We talked up Wixie, and I think it's a good thing we did, because we'll see what they can do with this Renata and Kalista early game up against Arrow and Joey.
Yeah, and both of these lanes are pretty strong, right? There's a lot of opportunities for Arrow and Wixie to just go head on and just fight, right? You have a couple of supports that love going for these trades. You have the Electrocute coming through from Joey. Duo King's passive just allows him to be more aggressive in these laning phases. And I feel as though, you know, this is a couple of AD carries who have had a lot more opportunities to be aggressive, right? When I was looking at Wixie throughout most of his career, he's kind of been, you know, the 4th or 5th player on the team. He's not necessarily the person you look to make a lot of big plays, but as his laning has gotten better, as his ability to actually get gold going into the mid game has improved, we're actually starting to see him have a lot more opportunity to try and find these early game aggressive opportunities. And going up against Arrow and Joey, I feel as though this is the one time where they might be outmatched.
I think you might be right. I'm curious to see how well they can do, and it's been great to see Wixie, you know, develop as a player. I know we kind of rolled out a lot of different highlight clips from him on a number of teams over the years, and I think that Alvaro really called it out. Like, you know, getting replaced kind of always felt a little unfair. I don't think Wixie was necessarily ever like an issue or like a low point on the team. Just other people. Ooh, as Musader spies that potential dive coming in. This is the level 3 Chad gank. Is anybody surprised by this? I don't think you can be.
No, I can't say I'm particularly surprised as Chad comes through, just forcing Moose Hater away, and this is a ton of experience being denied, even more so than the gold. You need to get the experience onto Moose Hater. On the other side of the map, Keel, I mean, he's clearing out all of his camps. Chad, they know he's still there, right? They have the ward to see where he would exit from, and so as Chad just sticks around, he is investing so much time here into Vital, and he's going to be losing a ton of farm himself. So this is a huge investment into their new rookie.
Yeah, this is an absolute flip, and right, I think recognizing the fact that you want to get Musader ahead, but on the opposite side, Keel is actually going to be opting for a level 4 gank himself. He was spotted, so this is going to be Arrow starting to move out here as he just throws those chakrams, is forced to flash away. Joey is caught a little bit, but they do have some damage. The Meep Slap Electrocute does mean that Keel gets pushed back. So Keel actually doesn't really get as much. I mean, he gets the full clear away, but he wasn't really able to do anything more beyond that. And Arrow and Joey don't get denied too heavily.
Yeah, they only lose a couple of minions, but as we look towards the rest of the map, remember, Chad has spent so much time on the map, and this is something that he's consistently done, right? He will consistently look for ganks after the first couple of camps, and then he will give up a ton of his own farm in order to help him out. Now, when we talked to him on Media Day, Pyra, we actually got to hear that he was saying that one of the reasons why he didn't feel as though he was being as successful is because he was spending too much time playing for the rest of the team. This is playing for the team. This is more playing for the team than he's playing for himself, and Moose Hater is still even in farm.
Yeah, Moose Hater is right now. At least Vital does manage to find a proc of the Vital, or at least close enough, and you're going to see Keel coming up to give a little bit of help, because clearly, you know, AOE Ginger Turmeric are recognizing that they want to try and get Moose Hater ahead too. This is something you want to do on a Kale, because you want to be able to match that pressure, and early on, Vital should have the edge in it overall, but AOE Ginger Turmeric are playing for late game. I mean, you don't need to see the culling to know that.
Yeah. I mean, the big part of it is the fact that this wave was threatening to get frozen, and Keel's like, nope, let's go ahead and fix that. And so, as they get the wave to bounce back, Moose Hater will be in a much more comfortable position in the next couple of minutes. And so this battle over the top lane wave that we have consistently seen going back and forth is going to have a big impact one way or another, right? Moose Hater is still down about an entire level going up against Vital, and Hale's levels matter more than anything else. And so, as the map overall remains relatively even, there's a big lead for Vital and a big lead for Keel.
Yeah, but in the bottom lane, there's a massive CS differential that Wixie actually has, because despite the fact that they were able to zone, it looked like they weren't able to necessarily get that much off on minions by zoning Arrow and Joey away on that gank attempt, but still picking up quite a lot. So Wixie has a little bit of an edge here. However, they have to be careful. Chad is coming through, looking for a gank in the bottom side, and they've got all sums, may need to use them. Let's see how well Joey and Arrow can bait this out. Ginger Turmeric's bot side playing fairly safe.
Yeah, and also look at the fact that while Chad is doing this, he's not doing his wolves, he's not doing his Gronk, he's continuing to fall behind. And this was the entire point of playing the Udyr in spring. You would look for these opportunities against characters like Trundle, against Lee Sin, and just say, hey, you need to farm or I'm going to get more money than you. You need to make plays.
Oh, Moose Hater. Okay, the grand challenge is issued. Moose Hater walks out of it. Vital does not opt for the aggro play. He would have had to flash under turret, very risky move. So instead, he tries to play it safe here. Now, Joey going to get caught, stunned up. Magical Journey taken, but he takes a lot of punishment for it. Chad's cut off. I didn't see what happened down there to kick things off, but the 3v3 did not go the way of Immortals Progressive Academy.
Yeah, this is a huge upset coming through. Or I guess not an upset yet, right? They haven't won, and even then, I don't want to say it's a huge upset, but
Are you
this
upset?
is not how I expected the early game to go. I don't know if I'm upset. I'm surprised.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Perturbed. Let's see if Keel...
That's a good word.
Yeah, you know, I have a couple of them. Shrimps is a little bit low on this one, but he is sending a few rockets forward as Keel has been very active on the map, and actually down in jungle CS, but Chad has also been matching quite well, despite the fact he spent a fair bit of time, and now, there we go, there's the flip, excuse me. I read the CS numbers backwards.
Oh,
But,
that was
yeah,
good. I was like,
yeah.
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
He's up 3 camps
You know
already,
what?
and Keel will just go right on back.
Sometimes you just accidentally the wrong number. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Never do math on broadcast. That's number one. But
Or
Chad and
read,
Joey are going to go ahead and start. Yeah, apparently not. No, it's bad. Dragon. This is a nice advantage, or a nice use of the prio that they already had. They had Scuttlecrab. Duo King will be able to potentially sniff this out, but I don't think they can really stop it. You see off the back, Wixie had already gone to buy his Noon Quiver. So that's going to be a little bit of a slow tank, but they've got it. And Arrow is getting free time on the minion wave. And that's important because Arrow was set behind.
Yeah. And this is, you know, a bigger win now coming through for Immortals than it was on previous patches. While it takes a longer take, as you called out, it also gives you a bigger boon, 50% more attack speed and cooldown reduction than it gave you on the previous patch. And so Immortals, finding this little bit of a window, are also going to be giving up a ton of time on the top side, right? This is why we call League of Legends a tempo game, because it's actually turn-based, right? Every single time you go for this back, every single time you have all of your members on the map, you are giving up something elsewhere. And so as Arrow and Joey, they spend their tempo walking to the mid lane to ask, do we want to fight over this Rift Herald? They're giving up all the time that they had in the mid lane, and they're giving it up bottom lane. And so that allows Wixie and Duo King to crash things while Chad is doing it. Keel's using the tempo in the exact same way to pick up the Rift Herald on the top side. And overall, it's a bit even on the map, but a big gold lead potentially going to come through from AOE Ginger Turmeric when they actually crash the Rift Herald.
Yeah, and remember, this is the team that wants the late game themselves, so they've got to be feeling pretty good about things. The amateur squad looking solid as Shrimps does take a little bit of damage back. There's the Gatling gun on, but this is all a bait from Pretty. Does end up getting out the Valkyrie. No package, though. Skill will see that Chad is on Crab in the river, and I like that, Joshi. I like calling League of Legends a tempo game that is also turn-based. You know, it's also got quick time events. It really does have just about everything.
Oh?
Yeah. Hey,
What's a quick time event?
You don't know what quick time events are? You have to mash the button really
I know
fast?
what quick time events
Oh,
are.
it's a quick time
but
event right now. You got to flash fast. Captain Shrimps managing to live and Keel getting the stun off. How did that happen? He even sends another big rocket. No first blood at 9.5 minutes, but oh so close. Shrimps had to be in single digits.
Didn't see where that exactly came from, but Pretty does have his shockwave still available, and we are starting to see, right? I was expecting this to be our biggest mismatch on the entire rift. Pretty already up 30 CS or 20 CS, but in the mid lane or the bottom lane, Keel's crashing.
Gonna do the pop on the Herald Eye. Let's see. Arrow and Joey know this is happening. I think we're gonna get ourselves a first brick before we get first blood. Arrow and Joey putting a fair amount of respect in here, but the flash forward, they're gonna bring the Fate's Call, and the denial of the Shelly, but it doesn't matter because they've got the push back. Here comes Chad. Keel can't quite get the wall. He doesn't actually have the flash, but in the 2v3, they're actually doing pretty good work here. Arrow taking low. Chad and Joey already down.
Oh, the teleport.
And all of a sudden, that Bard play was some serious value. Dual King forced to flash back. Shrimps is here, and IMT, they're fancying their chances in a 4v4. It was a Magical Journey looking for Dual King. Handshake taken. Still no first blood. 10 minutes in, it's just a kite fest. Joshi, both teams, nobody wants to fully commit, it seems.
Not quite yet, but notice the fact that GT are still ahead on the map, right? They still have the gold lead, and a lot of this has come down to the fact that Wixie and Duo King, with a little bit of help from Keel, have already taken over control of the bottom lane, right? 30 CS in favor of Wixie over Arrow and Joey, right? We have been seeing the redemption arc come through for Wixie. I remember watching this guy several years ago when he was still playing on Cloud9 Amateur along players like XU and Breezy. This guy was consistently able to find a lot of leads. We were able to see how much trust his team had in him, and now with the investment that they've already put into him, even though they don't get the turret, up 40 CS, this is a game where Wixie is perfectly poised to carry and be the bridge in order to allow Corki and Kale to come online.
Yeah, really impressive stuff from the player. He's only had a couple of seasons of League of Legends experience in terms of academy and amateur and all that under his belt, so really nice to see that development, really nice to see this team putting a lot of trust, a lot of faith in him, up against a very, very veteran player in Arrow. I mean, it's been a long time since KT Arrow, but all the same, I think it's really good to see that 2v2 flexing here. Vital now getting a few more hits onto this tower, looking for a little bit of plates, but Moose Hater unperturbed has been in a CS deficit, but as you pointed out earlier, this should be Fiora's lane, and Vital has been unable to find the solo kill.
Yeah, he looked for it one time. He's gotten a couple of plates off already. But again, you know, with the CS deficits that you're seeing in the jungle and the bottom lane, it might not matter if you're a great team fighter.
It's forcing the flash out of Arrow, and that's going to be a whiff on the Tempered Fate. Joey does get the meep slap off to defend, but again, the bullying continues, and the CS lead widens. It's an entire Vamp Scepter and Crit Cloak difference.
Yeah. You were calling out, right? It's been a while since we've seen KT Arrow. That's what Joey was talking about as well in the house tour, right? He says, you know, when he had the whole picture of Arrow that I always like to look at first off, my first thought is me and who, but Vital?
The one proc, and the Divine Judgment comes through. Vital still chasing, looking for one, looking for the third, does not find the fourth. He's just not been able to finish the job, but Moose Hater has hung in there well. It's Vital. Goes in, dashing once again, flashing forward. Here we go. I think we might get the play. That's going to be followed through. No, Moose Hater has the range now into the minion waves. Vital realizes he can't keep chasing this, so he backs away, and Moose Hater stepping it up once again.
Yeah, Heel walking into Chad's jungle, still has a 5 camp advantage, and this bottom lane turret going to be going down, as you said, before first blood, even though if it's a couple minutes later. And GT are doing this at the perfect time in order to look at the next dragon. They are in a perfect position, and look at this. Arrow and Joey spending their time on the other side of the map, none of them coming down to actually try and contest, and so Immortals just slowly falling behind in this game, and we are starting to look at Pretty as the big player who needs to make something happen. But I mean, it's Orianna. He's not strong for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, he went for a relatively safe lane. I mean, I think this was really just a testament to the drafting strategy from AOE GT. They denied a lot of the running playmakers. They got rid of the Azir, they got rid of the Talia. Those are the two champions we've already seen Pretty on in this tournament, and of course, have been some of his most successful. So he's had to go for the Orianna, which is always going to be a tier behind unless your name is Power of Evil. And that just means that, yeah, speaking of Immortals, that just means that, you know, AOE GT, they have some advantages. They have some edges. Obviously, they hit their own mid pool, but Captain Shrimps isn't the win condition here. It's going to be Wixie, Keel, Moose Hater.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very close to the spot where I'm saying IMT have about 10 minutes to win the game, or they probably lose, right? It's really that stark at this point. When you already have the Aphelios who's starting to fall behind, Kalista is really coming into their own, and Moose Hater is already so strong. They need to try and make these dives happen. Chad's coming down. He needs to try and find something because he's already fallen behind so far in farm. Keel is going to be more relevant than Trundle in all of the upcoming fights.
Yeah, and he does have his turbo chem tank, so like he's able to at least get some big tank stats out. But you're right, he kind of had a bit of a gamble early on in trying to focus so much pressure topside, trying to get some ganks off. Didn't get nearly as much farm. Keel has just been completely undeterred. Yes, he gets chased away from his own gank attempts, but you're Udyr. You don't have gap closers unless you flash bear slap, and he's gone for the ghost this game. So it's not going to happen. He wants the late game power farm strategy. AOE GT just fully driving ahead as the gold lead just starts to accelerate in their favor. They cut off the dragon stack. Yeah, they can chase Moose Hater away from this tower, but look what's happening up top. They're completely losing pressure. It's going to be another one.
I'm honestly really impressed, Pyra, right? The way that AGT are currently moving around the map is not what we expect from most of our amateur teams. The way that Moose Hater is giving up all this pressure so that he doesn't die is not something that a lot of even academy teams will do. AGT are playing around the tempo on the map. They are using all the time, and they understand where they're weak. They understand where they're strong. They're consistently finding these small advantages. The question that we gotta ask, though, is do they have hands? The answer was absolutely yes, going up against 100 Thieves, but now Immortals are gonna have an opportunity to do that, and we actually haven't seen a whole lot of combat.
Oh boy, yeah, it's still no first blood at almost 16 minutes into the game. A couple of dragons have dropped, a couple towers as well. One on the Immortal side and two in favor of AOE GT, but close call there. Captain Shrimps does just use the Valkyrie, no package even, to get away from the Tempered Fate. Joey has clearly been fishing for them, but you can tell AOE, they do have hands so far. They've done their homework. They are using those hands to stiff arm Immortals Academy away from them, not giving them an opportunity to find the play because they know they've got the late game. This is such good control from the amateur squad, and I think you're so right to call out that this is not always what we expect, and this is a squad that I think has given us a number of surprises. I know they've got a little history behind them as well.
Yeah, and it's definitely a squad where we are going to be looking a little bit about how they played during all the circuit qualifiers before they actually came here, and as they dropped the Rift Herald mid, we know that they didn't actually play with Wixie throughout all the circuit qualifiers. They were playing with Deep Learn instead. They weren't necessarily playing with Moose the entire time, they were playing with Existence, and now, as the Rift Herald actually crashes, you know, that doesn't look like they skipped a beat.
I don't think so. Let's see if they're able to get the fight, though. Keel does take a lot of damage, and the hostile takeover does push the rest of IMT away. They just use it for the disengage. They didn't actually want the fight. I love this control play as AOE GT do not give an inch to Immortals.
And so far, nothing that Immortals has tried to do has actually worked out. They finally catch one.
Duo King's caught. Gonna end. Does get knocked up for days. Nothing really much you can do, but the Kalista denial again. You can't forget about that. You can just bring Duo King back into the Pokeball. Nicely played by Wixie.
Yeah, a little bit of a Nambo combo, right, where they use both the Kill Ultimate and the Fate's Call to keep them alive, but, you know, that's a small criticism at this point. They are still playing the map beautifully. The only thing we can really criticize them for is we wish that their lanes were doing a little bit better. But we said that there were 10 minutes for Immortals. We have already spent 4 of them since we called that out for Immortals to not get a whole lot of advantages and in fact continue to fall a little bit more behind. But we got our next dragon spawning here in 20 seconds. And if I'm Immortals, I am praying that AOE Ginger Turmeric come to fight me there, because this is our last chance where I feel like we're really stronger than them. But Ginger Turmeric, they don't have to show up. Right, that's the crazy thing about these objectives. You don't have to fight for them. AGT know that they're going to have better opportunities later, and IMT are rapidly running into a spot where they have to just ask, how do we get them to come out of their base? How do we get them to come fight us? How do we have control over the map? And I don't think they really do.
Yeah, you have to think about what this team has got to be doing in the comms right now, as they have been facing down situations in the past where they've struggled to put things together. You talked about their losing skid in Academy. They picked it back up in week number 6, and have they gotten better? They've faced off a number of amateur teams here, but this is a different caliber as the fight's going through. That is going to be the Dragon Stick here, but AOE GT, they're going to look for a cutoff here. Watch Moosehater off the opposite side. There comes the package Valk, a special delivery, and our first blood comes at 18 minutes and 43 seconds in favor of Ginger Turmeric. Vital on the run will follow Chad to the grave. That is going to be 2 kills picked up by AOE GT.
And Immortals, they get the dragon, but whoop-de-doo, you're already so far behind in terms of where you are, in terms of the map, in terms of actually scaling. Moosehater's hit level 11. Captain Shrimps had a great package there in order to actually control the fight.
Oh, Magical Journey, look at that damage coming out from Shrimps right now, and Duo King is even able to get the reset, and that massive Costal takeover costs Arrow his life on top of the tower. 3 kills unanswered. And it's looking like this is a spicy glass of Ginger Turmeric here that Immortals are having to swallow down.
Yeah, this is it, right? I was expecting this one to be a pretty close game, but so far Immortals haven't shown
Pretty.
up.
Pretty. Just hasn't been able to have this impact on Orianna that we see from the likes of a Talia, from the likes of a Nazir. I really like the draft strategy. Usually when you put a lot of eggs in the ban a specific player basket, it can be considered very risky. In the case of Pretty, it makes a lot of sense. I don't know how many times we heard in the Academy pick ban, oh no, Pretty got Talia again. It's trouble for the opponents. AOGT were taking notes.
You would think that we saw the same thing, right? We saw Wixie taking off the Draven, we saw Keel taking off the Karthus. These were some of the champions that they got their most wins on during the circuit qualifiers and the open qualifiers over the past couple of months. Immortals, they did their homework too. They banned away those champions, and so far we're seeing that GT are willing to continue playing a variety of different things in order to still find their wins. And, I said, again, at 14 minutes, Immortals have 10 minutes to actually try and win the game. Immortals, 6 minutes later, they've fallen another 2,000 further behind, and Keel, he's so strong. How do you actually kill this guy at this point? There's nobody who can get through the Udyr during all these fights, and with such a strong damage base behind him, feels as though AGT's game plan of just creating front-to-backs is going to be very easy to execute.
Keel is going to get caught here between Vital and Joey. The question is he going to be able to survive through it? He just keeps on running. You got 1 proc, you got 2, you got a dash. Here comes Duo King and Wixie, and all of a sudden, yeah, the cavalry's arrived. He's totally fine. The Tempered Fate does land. They know they need the play here as they do get the Meep Slap off, but instantly you see a big wave of gas heading the other way, and again, the Fate's Call pulls back Duo King, and there is absolutely zero risk. This AOE GT denial is continuing to frustrate Immortals.
Yeah, there's no playmaking tools coming in for Immortals, right? You have Vital who can play in the side lanes, but his 40 CS lead that we were seeing has evaporated because Moosehater has been more active in the side lanes ever since. They have Trundle Pillars, but he spent so much of his time at the beginning of the game.
There is going to be the Divine Judgment and the Flash to try and dodge away from the Grand Challenge, and the challenge already issued last time around. Blastcone's out. He's fine. Moosehater walking through. Immortals are getting nothing.
They are so desperate at this point. This is a game where you look at and you are incredibly frustrated throughout this entire game if you're an Immortals fan. If you're an Immortals player, you look at this game and, we've all been here, right? We look at the game, it feels like it's slowly getting out of hand. They might not realize it's down 6K, but you realize you're 0-3. You realize that you haven't necessarily gotten enough objectives, and you're just like, oh, I need to make something happen. I need to make something happen. And that can be very dangerous, right? Because if Vital had been a little closer to Keel, that could have been a dead Fiora.
That's a stun off, but you see, okay, they're going to put everything on Wixie here, but it's going to be the bail. It finally will fall. That shutdown gold, big gold infusion for Pretty, and Immortals immediately, they know they have to make some moves heading straight to the Baron.
They have to go for this Baron fight, right? You have to use these opportunities that AGT actually gives you. But still a little bit dangerous, right? You still have Keel walking in. They have a ton of damage. Where's the teleport from Moosehater? There it is.
Need to see it. There it is going to start right now, and Vital coming through. They're going to try and shade things, but they didn't really quite time out on that one hit. Moosehater taking a little bit low into the hostile takeover the Berserk. Not quite enough, but they peel off the Baron. That's all AOE GT needed as they deny a big swing. Immortals, Regressive Academy, it seems like they're feeling a little bit more regressive right now, Yoshi.
Yeah, this is rough. Right, Immortals, they have to try and fight both of the dragons. If they can get to Ocean Soul, maybe there's a chance that they can match the scaling, but even that's a pretty darn big maybe. And so Immortals, as they rush out onto the map, remember, Captain Shrimps has done a pretty good job at actually getting his packages to sync up with the rest of the map, to sync up with the dragons. And so, In a second, you're going to see Captain Shrimps. He's going to go back to base. He's going to wait for the package to spawn, and then he's going to teleport into the mid lane. And suddenly, the advantage that IMT had is going to be very quickly dashed. I think it's a little bit late. It'll spawn about a second or two after the dragon actually spawns.
Yeah, I think it might come up a little bit later. So IMT, they can take advantage of this timing window and possibly grab this if they can do it fast enough. But if you're Turmeric, they're not quite gonna give this one up. Here comes that TP in, and just look out for a special delivery coming in from downtown. If they can get this one fast enough, Immortals could walk away with it, but they realize there's the Corki package. They have to do this fast, so they have to bail away. Here comes Shrimps. He's gonna get stunned for a second, goes golden, and looks to separate the team. They're actually going to try and spy a little bit of time for themselves as they have Moose Hater stunned up for just a second. Shrimps isolated, Gatling gone, but they do take him down. Arrow manages to live, but meanwhile, the dragon is secured by Keel as they were chased away. Shockwave comes too late. They take one, do not lose a member, but the dragon is cut down, and the Aphelios ultimate lands to not a whole lot of effect. Immortals are going to have to be content with the fact they just get the kill off onto Shrimps.
Yeah, Shrimps being a little bit too big for his britches in that moment, but hey, it gives so much time over, and oh my god! The ward dies as they walk around!
They have to know! Teleport in. Is this going to happen in time, though? Vital, he can't quite chase them off. Everyone, he's going to try to go for a miracle of a steal. No, he comes in too late. And they're going to take the magical journey from Joey. I think they won't be able to stop AOE Ginger Turmeric here. Vital really wants the kill, but they're being denied. They're being chased away. Without that Baron on the map, Joshi, this is looking like the win conditions are just melting away for Immortals.
Yeah, at this point, you're looking towards your most veteran players, right? You're looking towards Pretty and Arrow. Now, Arrow is still scaling. The fact that he's only on almost 2 items is not particularly exciting, but the player who has been doing very well thus far has been Pretty. He's been instrumental in both of the kills that they've actually found so far. He's found some good shockwaves, and they might find Shrimps.
Yeah, he's going to face check into the blue, and immediately he valks away, actually stealing that one, but they get grabbing him back. Arrow getting gold, much needed there. Chad going to be caught off on the side. Will he go down before the rest of the team can arrive? He's buying a lot of time for himself, and he does have that subjugate on, stealing stats away. Tempered Fate dodged away. They just split the gap, and it's not going to be enough. Will they take the magical journey? No. Instead, they opt for the reset. So at least they can punish the overstepping. Immortals Academy are not out just yet.
Oh, Arrow. Okay. Immortals, yeah, it's looking pretty doomed at this point, but as long as they can continue finding these picks and stop any Baron pushing, that will give them a little bit of hope, but they don't have an Ocean Soul win condition that they can realistically play for. They have not been able to pick Duo King because Wixie is always there with the Fate's Call. They've only gotten the outer turrets at this point, and Vital doesn't, I don't even know if he wins the fight against Keel anymore. Right? Keel's gotten so far ahead.
And look at Moose Hater. Moose Hater's like, hey, you know, that's fine. I can do the side lane push too. And he's actually going to try and fast back here, but Pretty's going to deny him. That's nicely played. A 2-level difference means that Pretty could actually be pulling. They've got him. They can take this Kale out of here. He's going to have flash in a few seconds, but he knows he is dead. Even if he were to ult, it's just prolonging the inevitable, which he will do. Try and maybe get a kill, but Moose Hater overstepping means that Pretty gets another kill. They're just funneling gold into their mid lane hero. Now Vital trying for the 1v1 onto Keel. Does find the grand challenge, but Keel has taken the challenge right to him here. It's a battle of heals, a battle of sustain, but Vital will find the proc and wins the 1v1.
All right, Keel, a little bit too aggressive there, but still, the amount of time that was spent actually going for that play in the bottom lane and the duel going through top lane does mean that AGT get to push off. They take another turret in the mid lane, and oh,
Wixie, magical journey. They're going to actually deny getting an opportunity to take him. He just flash away, and nice predict. So they won't get him, but they do actually burn the summoner. Immortals just getting very aggressive. You called it desperation, but it has paid off in a number of these instances.
Yeah, we're seeing AGT, they were so good earlier on in the game, but they're getting a little bit sloppy when it actually comes to crossing the finish line. And this is where a lot of Academy teams have found their advantages, right? Later on, they've been consistently looking for opportunities to try and make these plays. Immortals are so good at taking these late game scraps, but they have the same problems that AGT have had this entire season, right? Immortals members, in particular Chad and Arrow, are likely to get caught the later the game actually goes. We've been seeing so far Keel going a little bit too far, Captain Shrimps going a little bit too far. Duo King was paired with any other marksman. He's been going a little bit too far, and so I hope this game doesn't just end with one of these players actually getting picked. I feel as though these players have been better than that this entire time, and now it's on Immortals to showcase that they can actually set up for the Dragon, that they can force AGT to take fights before Moose Hater is level 16.
They can make it happen. That's a window back into this game. Not an easy one, but one all the same. They do have Vital Doesn't quite have teleport up and available just yet. Crashing the wave down into that top side. Your eyes on the item buys as well. Arrow's just trying to rush his way to a third. He's not quite there yet as he takes out red buff. And for Pretty at least, death cap completed does mean he'll have a pretty beefy shockwave. And AOE GT have to realize they can't group up and straight up 5v5. That ward is going to do so much value as IMT realized they were sitting on top of it. So many brushes available to play with in this Ocean Rift. And Immortals trying to get aggressive, trying to muscle in. It's a 4,500 gold deficit, but doesn't mean as much as it might have.
We already see Moose Hater walking over. We have seen Vital reassert himself in the side lanes.
Okay, they just actually get the split. That Tempered Fate burn does mean it's a pretty big swing here for AOE GT. Keel going to be stepping forward, dodges away from that Cosmic Binding. Shrimps in, got the package. Vital would need to TP in if they want to take this 5v5. The setup is a little bit tough right now, but they're actually just trying to opt to have the push go, and they've zoned off this dragon. Are they going to actually go for the 5v5? They don't want to lose out on the pressure here. They try to get the poke on, but Keel keeps that dragon aggroed, and this is a tough dance.
Yeah, you don't take this fight. You just leave Vital alone in the side lane. You hope that AOGT goes to you.
It's going to be that one, though. They've split Chad. They've got Pretty. He's low, but he doesn't quite go down as they get the flash over. Arrow is going to be caught isolated, but he's dodging, ducking, diving, and dipping away. The teleport comes in. Vital, smelling blood. Looks for Duo King, looks for Shrimps. They've got one. The grand challenge. They're picking them apart, and you can see that AOE GT were not expecting that play to come through. Buys a bit of time as they look to turn this around. The 3v3's there. A clutch use of Moose Hater's ultimate does deny a fight going massively in favor of Immortals. It's an even trade, minus the tower. But AOE GT right back on this push.
Oh, Shrimps.
Tempered Fate. They've caught Shrimps out. It came off cooldown again. Chad looking for the damage. They don't quite have it. Look at Keel. He's zoning off two members here, but Chad just goes wild into the backside, and they will actually be able to finish off Keel, blowing through all the health. Moose Hater gonna be caught. The dragon completely resetting, and will this in fact be the delayed ace? Not quite. Moose Hater nearly turns it, but they win. Immortals, they win the fight.
Do they have time, though? Wixie and Duo King are already on the way. Pretty and Joey are not particularly healthy.
Not the strongest damage dealers either. They're going to try and force the issue here.
They got it. They got
it.
You
can see Wixie and Duo King. They're not going to contest. I can't believe they just pulled that off. What a stressful minute that was.
IMT, well, they had a fantastic plan for this last dragon, right? They leave Vital alone there, punishing the fact that Moose Hater is moving too early for some of these fights. They got to do that again, right? They are still down 3,000 gold. They're still going up against Kale and Corki. Corki's already hit the level 16. Moose Hater is not far behind. Immortals, they need to try and find their way to get that Ocean Soul. They need to do this yet again. But so far, AGT, they did a fantastic job in the first half of the game. Now, they actually need to get themselves to finish it out. And while we were giving Wixie so much credit before, he can still have some big plays in this game. But the players that we got to look at are now Moose Hater and Captain Shrimps. They're these late game carries who can play with so much range and so much damage that IMT can't match them.
No, but they have been able to find these picks. Wixie does get one dodge off Duo King in the handshake, shakes Joey's hand, and there we go. With that fade away on the hostile takeover burned in exchange for the Tempered Fate, IMT buy themselves a little bit of room to try and clear away on this Baron. I don't know if they're going to be strong enough to just straight muscle it down. They wouldn't want to get caught out. Package not available means the threat is a little bit diminished. There's always the chance of getting the 8,000 elo shockwave as Pretty is trying to flex the limits of this Orianna.
That's a Ferelyn Lord reference. I appreciate those.
Look, I'm an old caster. I gotta do them every once in a while. It's going to be the start on this Baron with the Ren stacks in there. It goes pretty fast, but Vital looking for the cutoff and don't want to tangle when the Baron's on the line. It seems like the tables have turned a little bit here, Joshi. All of a sudden, AOE GT are the ones playing a little nervous.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised they aren't necessarily playing their front to back all that well, right? They haven't been setting up a lot of these objectives. They've done a great job so far pushing and pulling on the map, with the one exception of, the most recent dragon. But otherwise, AGT's setups for a lot of these objectives have been resulting in them getting there a little bit late. They aren't necessarily putting Keel in the right place relative to Shrimps and Wixie in order to actually get the damage down. And so that's what Immortals have been kind of punishing them on. We're consistently seeing that Immortals looking for these opportunities in, and also Pretty, well, he's been a little bit quiet in the way that he's done it, has found himself to a 5-0-3 scoreline at this point. He's still deathless. He's only had one death so far this this entire Proving Grounds. Or at least between the last years and this one. I don't remember about the play.
Yeah, pretty is looking very solid right now, and I think we were right to highlight him as the hero of this team, right? One of the most consistent players, if not the most, and really just having a lot of upside. Why it's so much respect on the bans. Even on an Orianna, still a playmaking champion, and you do roll into the late game pretty happy when you have 3 items, which we have seen already. So Baron control established here by Immortals Progressive Academy, looking to move forward, but they have to respect the damage that AOE GT can do if they get the right setup. No package on the Corki does mean the threat is a little bit lower, and they are playing for that Ocean Soul. Coming up in 2 minutes, and could have a split map. Comes down to it. I think AOE GT would be trying to force the issue that way, and there is that 3rd item completed by Arrow. The Trinity Force is up, so IMT Arrow online.
Yep. And there we go. Vital, once again, as you said, already in the side lane, trying to create pressure. And AGT, they're trying to counteract it. They're moving together in order to try and find some opportunity. But Moosehater, level 16, he's not contesting Vital just quite yet. And it feels as though AGT aren't quite sure what to do this late into the game. Now, as you already called out, Pretty has scaled, right? The 3K Elo Shockwave, the Pharrellin Lord references can still come through. Pretty can still be the big playmaker, but Immortals, that means that they have to be in these locations first. It makes Pretty's job that much easier when everything ends up shaking down, but neither side has necessarily been working together or setting themselves up in order to make these plays happen, and Keel starting up the Baron once again.
Vital knows this. All of a sudden, IMT are going to be there. It doesn't show himself just yet, and there we go. Do AGT want to force the issue here? Vital could try and cut them off. There's a package on Shrimps if they want to try and go for the straight up 50-50. That's going to be Moosehater stopped it for just a second. They got to take the fight. They do get the stun. Heal is there. Moosehater, Vital on top of him, looking for those procs. Does get the repost. Buys a bit of time, but the split is there. And that's going to be Vital falling. Baron starts to reset, but there is a numbers advantage for AOE GT, and Chad zoned a little away. They're going to have to do this one. The Baron does go down. IMT a little scattered. They try to get some chip damage out, but they can't quite find the kills. They need to back and reset 30 seconds before that dragon comes, Joshi.
Keel is not having enough HP to actually step up for the moment, but IMT, they now have to try and defend this upcoming dragon without Vital. He's still dead. He'll be dead for at least 10 seconds after the dragon actually spawns, and AGT, now that they're coming together, the front to back is so much easier. They get to move in all together, and suddenly Keel, the unkillable tank in the front, will allow Moosehater and Captain Shrimps to hit anybody they feel like.
IMT, they just need to buy time. The silver lining here is that Vital does have TP available. He wouldn't be able to join the fight. Could actually potentially flank if you look at that one ward upriver, but this is going to be the start. The timing, AOE GT, they realize they can pull this one away. Delay the soul to put us on soul point across the board. The handshake pulls in Chad. He backs away. That's going to be the Tempered Fate landing onto one, but Wixie is well protected by Keel. They back away. Nicely done. Shockwave still a huge threat here. No package on Shrimps. But if you're AOE GT, you can't afford to let this dragon go away, so the fight just goes back and forth. It's mortars flying left and right. But Immortals Progressive Academy have their sights set on the soul. Vital steps forward and just absorbs. That one Pretty taken low. The rockets are flying, but it's not going to be enough. They get the stun up. Vital looking that way. You can see the damage is real as Wixie takes him out of this. And the dragon is going to go the way of AOE GT, if not just the fight in the game. Right here, right now. Moosehater takes Joey out. Dual King will finally fall. But it's going to be Keel with the smite to even the dragon scoreline. Pretty needs to find something back to keep his team in this game. They just trade 1 kill for 2. AOE Ginger Turmeric smelling blood. They know they can get the edges. They need to just stop the backs.
Chad's turned by space, but he can't.
Keel's in there. He can stop them both. Pretty and Arrow, they can't back Chad. They just can't do it right now. And this is going to be the push on the towers. There's too much time. Is it going to be the win after all?
Oh my gosh, AGT gotta take them down. Shrimps just needs to buy time. He'll die for it. He doesn't care.
It's worth it. He just needs to stop it from happening, and they do. The Nexus Late Bear and AOE Ginger Turmeric. They find game number 1. What an unexpected way. Joshi, that game, you could not predict how it was going to end.
It was, I mean, you know, I felt as though AGT were pretty far in the lead most of the time, but the way that it ended with multiple people coming through and stopping the ports, I was not expecting that at all. We'd see AGT take it down relatively easily. They control so much of the early game, and Immortals, they need a better way to actually make some of these plays early on, because this is how AGT like to play. We know that this is what they're going to try and do next time, maybe pick a little bit stronger lanes, but they will try and outscale you, and that's what we saw this time. Immortals, as a team that I prided them on their ability to make level 1s, did nothing for the first couple of levels, and then Chad spent so much of his time trying to help out Vital, and it didn't matter.
Did not at the end of the day, so AOE GT, it was a rockier ride to the finish, but they get themselves win number 1, and we'll see if Immortals Progressive Academy can find a win coming back into Game 2 on the other side of this break.